women deliver? Because I feel there is a gap, and how they like seeing much of the involvement for LGBTI persons or youth in issues to do with women deliver in Uganda.
I hope that some of you will be, well, have anyone of you been to Women Deliver works on a wide range of issues related to gender equality. We work on girls and women mainly, but we also have the bigger gender equality agenda. We come from a background of maternal health, sexual and reproductive health and rights, and so LGBTQS side, it of course is integrated in our work. It's not our main part of work, because that's not what we do, but we never shy away from it, and we embrace it. So if you were to be in Vancouver, you would see, as you did in the Women Deliver conference in Copenhagen, you would see a great track on the issues, but also as an integrated element of the whole discussion. Marcia, do you have our infographics? Deliver for Good infographics?
Yeah.
So Women Deliver with a whole group of wonderful partners started a campaign that's called Deliver for Good a couple of years ago. I know some of you are involved in it, and there's now more than 400 organizations across the globe with a specific push in Kenya, Senegal, and India. There's 12 investments that it's based on the Sustainable Development Goals, and we drilled down and identified 12 investments we need to make in girls and women to power progress for everybody and achieve the SDGs. It was very important to us that we, because we did not want to shy away from what some people call sensitive, because so sexual rights is one of the investments in all its entirety. So, and what we have done on that is, so we have, there's reproductive health, there's maternal health, there's nutrition, there's girls' education, there's economic empowerment, there's political participation, women in the environment, data, partnership, all of that. But there's also, of course, the issue of sexual and reproductive health and rights. So we have policy briefs, we have infographics. This is 30,000 pages of research. And that's again kind of coming back to the communications element. Politicians don't read. They don't have time. I don't know about how many of you have ruined handbags by carrying around thick reports. I carry them home, say, now I'm going to read them, then I carry them back. I carry them home, and I stack them up and say, when I have time, I'll read it. But, so we know that that's not how most decision makers, they do. They don't have time to dig down to those big reports that many of us produce. So we took it for you and for everybody, drilled it down on 12 investment cards with the situation, the investment, the solution, and the policy asks. They're made so they fit in a suit pocket, because we know that most of the negotiators are men. They also fit in a handbag, and they are little cheat sheets. Behind it are policy briefs with case studies. And that's really where we see politicians and influencers go and find a lot of the inspirations. And it is the entirety. It's wonderful to see how many organizations are backing up about that, and how we see the collaboration. So last year, or 2 years ago, we certainly had Landesa, which is a land rights organization, and Women Deliver stand in the World Bank and talk about the connection between reproductive health and land rights. So we really try to break down those barriers in an integrated manner. So, as we say, integrate, collaborate to accelerate the progress.
I think maybe we can pick 2 questions, and then her first, and then who else? Okay, fine.
No, okay. I'm Valerie from Kenya. I'm an SRH transfer. I had to send my question, but just when you read it out. We are aware, I work with a lot of young women and who are also champions, especially from rural areas and also informal settlements, and they are fire champions and they are experts in what they do. However, they face challenges in navigating the women's rights space and accessing high-level forums. So I would just want to know how best can we support these young women for them to understand the text, and then how they're also very worried how they can package themselves to fit into the movement.
So I'm happy to speak to it. But I'll also say some of the best advice you can get is from other young people, other young women who've done it. What we do in Women Deliver, because we do believe that everybody has power. Big, small, soft, hard, pointed. And sometimes you just have to tease that out and help it grow. So, we have a big Young Leaders program. I think some of you are part of it. We had a digital university with training for advocates. That's a 3-month training in advocacy and communications. But it also connects a lot of young people to big speaking opportunities on the big stages in the world and the national stages in the world, to really make sure that, because if Women Deliver can get into the halls of power, most often we don't go in there alone. We bring other people with us. And I, for myself, always insist on, if I have the opportunity, to bring particularly young people with me and with us. Because, it doesn't cost us a lot, and it really kind of helps lift up. So Madeleine Albright said something that I find very smart, and I carry it in my heart. That is, there's a place in hell for women who don't help other women. And we do see, and I discuss it a lot with women in high leadership, because there's some who say, I had to fight to get here, everybody else has to fight to get here. Where my approach is, if we look at the world of leadership today, there might be one space for a woman, there might be 2 out of 10, there's one space for a woman, 2 spaces. And then of course it becomes a fight to be that one who gets that. Where I kind of look around to leaders and say, hey girls, why don't we fight to get some more space instead of fighting about the space that's there? Let's use our energy and kind of enlarging the space and getting the 3, 4, 5 seats instead of fighting each other and getting the 1 seat. So my advice to young people would be, hook up with others to get it done. Get the training and the knowledge that's also that's needed to sit at the table. Because one thing is to get a seat at the table. I could see how difficult it was to get people to move in here. And I'm sorry, ladies. Get on it. If there is a seat, you go and take it. Don't hold back. That's how we hold ourselves back. But then it's also kind of, when you get to that seat, you got to be able to hold it and keep it and use it for something that's not just for yourself, but for greater and bigger good.
Before we go on, I kindly request that if you're standing directly behind Katja, you just move 1 step to your right and left, so as to avoid being in the view of the camera. Also, if you're standing behind a door, try open it, because it seems this is a hot topic and the room is now getting very hot, so we have to try and find a way to work with the AC to cool it down. So in that regard, we have a very controversial question, if I can put it of sorts. It's a political question on Twitter from Shinan Mao, and she asks, women inclusion in African countries, especially involving political and decision making, is still a struggle. It is even worse for younger women. How can we negotiate for this space with our older women and show value for our inclusion?
Well, some of it I just kind of addressed, because it's the same. Let's not fight each other, but let's fight on getting a bigger seat at that table, or more seats at that table. And that's only by standing together, not only as women, but also as men. One of the things that Women Deliver does is that we collate the evidence, and we nudge the evidence to show why is it and how is it that the investment case around both women in leadership and investing in girls and women in general, whether it's health or education. And now we have the evidence. So we have the evidence that shows that if in a company there's more diversity, and that's diversity of all kinds, whether it's sexual orientation, whether it's race, whether it's age, whether it's gender, that more diversity actually produces better results in the bottom line. So now we have that. We have the evidence that shows when there's more women in politics, seats in the parliament, cabinet seats, you get a society that is more inclusive, that where health and education is better, that is less corrupt, and also with we don't have the full kind of investment case on that yet on how economics fare, but that's I guess a matter of time. So now we have the evidence. So I'm a little cheeky now because I often get the question from journalists who says, so why is it that it pays to invest in women? And I have all the arguments and say, this we get up. But I'm also getting a little tired of that question. Because why don't you ask, why is it that the company fare worse if it's only men? So the question to ask to a board is actually, are you doing your job if you let them go on by only hiring men? But evidence shows that you could make more money by having a diverse workforce. But what we need to do is again stand together and work across because we have the evidence. What I see more and more, I see men who stand with feminists and with gender activists because we can see men are also boxed into roles. So that's masculinity that has been taught is also holding men in a box. So when we can start talking about that you're not just a pretty princess and you're not just a strong man. You can have different elements of the whole spectrum. Then it's
Alright, thank you. So I just want to do a quick summary before I hand over the mic to the next person. There's been two hands here insistent, so you'll be the next two. Keep calm. So I want to summarize for anyone who's walked in between. So number one, it's not just a woman issue. We also need men on board. I think it was perfectly summarized yesterday by our own father, Youth for UHC, where he said behind every pregnancy, there is a man. So it's no longer behind every man, there is a woman. It's behind every pregnancy, there is a man. Then number two, let's work together. Let's not put each other down. So we have two lessons so far, yes? Please also send it on Twitter for guys to also follow. So with that, let's now hear these burning questions on this end. And I also have one that's just come in that's also burning. It's asking, which two women inspire you? But hold on with your answer. So we get two more questions, then you answer all three at once.
Hi everyone, I'm Lubna. I work for Frontline AIDS, formerly known as the International HIV/AIDS Alliance. Very happy to hear about women and all their diversity and the focus on reproductive health and gender equality at the next Women Deliver in Vancouver. I wondered if I could suggest that the next Women Deliver be held in our continent here in Africa. Because that would be, really, and people organise things like this for you and really to see how we live on this end of the world. If I could just add to your answer around decisions, political decisions, I think maybe we need to start with decisions over our own bodies first. Let's start with that before we move on to the political decisions. So, as women here, behind every pregnancy there should not be a man. There should be a woman too, 50-50. And it's not, because often it's not about family planning, it's about sex. So let's just be, and let's make sure the sex is safe and that we're only having children because we're delivering because we want to deliver a baby. So thank you very much. Now, can I pass on to the next person?
Yes.
I'd say to that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I don't think it's a matter of waiting till we kind of are comfortable in all our own bodies until we start being political. I think we can do both at the same time. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I'm Mariam Tahir. I'm a medical doctor from Somaliland. Actually, the things that when I look up to you. Actually, I follow you on Twitter and always see when that inspired me. Maybe I will answer. She inspired me a lot. But when it comes to where I come from, and maybe most of African women, is confidence. the confidence of the woman that's not built. So how we can help, maybe like I do, I run with the for politicians, like decision makers, and I go up, but there is a lots of girls who wonder what this lady is doing. That's not your position, Mariam. Your position is to deliver a baby. So how we can build and move this lens of patriarchal lens of the girls, because they see me as somebody who is doing wrong, and sometimes they see themselves less valuable, and that comes from traditions and as well as from the culture. So to not forget that in Africa we have a very patriarchal society. How we can build, actually that's what makes me strike, and I wonder how I can help the other girls who coming up to the ladder not to be pushed away. Thank you.
Going out on a limb here, I think that the confidence issue is not defined by a continent or an age. You know, one of the best conversations I've heard was with a bunch of really powerful women, including Helen Clark, former Prime Minister of New Zealand and leader of UNDP, one of the strongest women in the world, I would say. She didn't think she could become a politician because she thought she had ugly teeth. And a politician needs to smile all the time. So talk about, you know, things that hold ourselves back. You know, when I was 19, 22, I did not think I was really nice or you know, very confident in my body. Today I think I'm cool and, you know, sexy and all of that. Probably, you know, kind of 40 pounds bigger, but, you know, hell with that. You know? I don't think it's listed to that. And I also stopped reading women's magazines because they're kind of, you see how you're supposed to look and how can you feel. You know it all is Photoshop. So, you know, and again, I think we can help each other. Both by, and it's also a parent thing, and like some of you might be parents, or you become parents soon. How do we bring up ourselves? Do we always tell them that they're pretty, or the dress is nice, or that they, you know, a nice girl is a quiet girl, and a pretty girl? You know, and that's a lot that comes to us as parents. And also, do you always tell your boy that he's strong and smart and has to conquer the world and can't cry? Because then we are kind of just doing the stereotyping, right? So I don't have I don't have an answer to the confidence issue, but I also know that some things that we sometimes box ourselves in and each other in. But I do know that when we look at the situation of women, it's not about fixing women. It's also the system that's holding us back. So let's not always turn it internally, which I do still. You know, if something is wrong, I also think, oh, what did I do? And it might not have been me who did anything. You know? But you know, I think we all, no matter where we are on the echelon of power, still have some of that. So if I may go back to my role models, two women I admire, I'll start with one, and that is Pippi Longstocking. She's a Swedish children's book character. She is, if you haven't heard about her, look her up. Pippi Longstocking. She's the strongest girl in the world. She lives in a house with a horse and a monkey. She can lift the horse. She has two sayings that I live by. One is, I've never tried that, I'm sure I can. And the other one is, if you're strong, you have to be kind. Because with strength, and that's for all of us, and we all have it, we have to be kind and lift other people up. My other role model is my grandmother. And she is, both because she is my measuring stick, that progress is possible. She was born in 1915 as the second of 5 kids. She was the really smart one. Out in the countryside, rural, really poor. Her mother died when she was young. Her dad was a dreamer, if I'm polite. She was a smart one, but she didn't get to go to school because it was chosen that her brother should go. And she was sent out as a maid when she was 6 or 7, so she could make money to pay for his education. Fast forward, she moved to Copenhagen. She bicycles to Copenhagen, 300 miles, where she meets my granddad. He doesn't have an education either. But they can read and write, both of them, but they haven't gone to further schooling. They can see that one of them needs to get an education if they are ever to break out of poverty. So they decide that he's probably closer to get it because he had a couple more years of schooling. So she works 7 days a week as a bicycling assistant nurse. It's really cold in Denmark in the winter. So she bicycles around, works these 13, 14-hour shifts so that he can go to college. They share an apartment, they live in they share an apartment with a lot of other young people, have one bed, small bed that they share, and she works every day. She knew that if she became pregnant, it would be the end of it, because then he would have to drop out of school. So she kind of, some of the innovative doctors back in the 30s, but they're not married, they're really rebels, but they couldn't afford to get married at that time. So she tries to get contraception, which was not available for unmarried women at that time. So she got into the fight for getting that to become right, and they succeeded. So the agreement was that when Granddad got an education, then it was her turn. But then they moved, he became a teacher, so they moved to the province, or kind of to a provincial town, and there it wasn't appropriate that a teacher's wife would work. So she kind of settled. She never got an education. She got her 2 kids. She got her grandkids, and I'm grateful to her. She pushed me my whole life and said, you need that education. She was relentless. She lent money and gave me money for my first computer. She didn't know what it was. She had no idea what it was, but she knew it was important. The day I got my period, she dragged me to the doctor so I could take contraception, because I was not going to get pregnant. Well, she also saved my life because I was born 5 weeks too early. So she was there, no matter what. And the day I got my graduate degree, she cried tears of joy. When she was on her deathbed, she made me promise that I would go and work for Girls and Women. She's my hero. And she is my yardstick. And she is my yardstick. And I look at where I am today. It's 2 generations. I don't think we need to wait 2 generations. We don't.
Thank you for that. So it's about time we change gears a little bit, and I'd like to hand over to my co-moderator for the next series of questions.
Yes, so we seem to change a little bit of subject. So, anyone else have we heard this inspiring story that touched our heart a lot, and maybe if someone has a question related to this, to what she has been said. I saw a hand here. Maybe we can give her a mic, and then her, the 2 of them, we catch your questions, and then it is an answer. Yeah.
Hi, Katja. It's always a pleasure listening to you and listening to your grandma's story. I think this is the umpteenth time I'm hearing it, but it always stirs up some deep emotion in me, because your story reflects the story of, or your grandma's story reflects the stories of many, many women across the world. This morning, my colleague was telling me about her grandparents who raised her, and a story almost similar to yours. The context is a little different. And I keep thinking, how can we take the realities that are reflected in those stories and weave it into the question of development? Because at the heart of these stories is how a life has changed. If your grandma had not done what she did, I may never have met you on a bus in cold Paris several years ago. If her grandma had not done what she did, I may never have met my colleague Daisy. But apart from just the individual, what does that mean for the economy of Daisy's family, for the economy of your family, and ultimately the economy of the communities and the countries that these people represent? Not only the social economy, but I think also the fiscal economy. Because to what extent is a woman who is able to take full charge of her body and use it, or rather use her circumstances to better herself, to what extent does she contribute to the development of her country? And allow me to just give you a very, very small story of my colleague. I went to one of the best girls' schools in Kenya out of merit. I met a friend there, and when we were in Form 3, she disappeared. I never knew why. Several years later, I was practicing law in Nairobi. I go out for lunch, and someone calls me by a name that you only knew if you're in school with me. But she looked 10 years older. She was beat, and we then kept contact. She dropped out of school because her father did not pay her school fees. Not because he could not. He married another wife, and so she dropped out. Worked, did everything, eventually got married early, and her husband did exactly the same thing, and at 35 she was a grandmother and had no education. And every time I think about her, I keep thinking, if my father did not pay my fees, remember we both qualified to go to the same school out of merit, it was not for any other reason, I may have been the one sitting across from her and not able to take care of my family. When I think about the economy of my village that has been impacted by the education that I got, and I replicate it, I try to multiply this by the number of women in my village, in my country, then I think we impact the economy. So my question is, how do we take the personal into the political, into the development of our countries and our nations?
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Yes, thanks. I think we have to, because those stories drives us, and they also drive the decision makers. What we do, and we do it relentlessly, is to really get that economic evidence of what, how we were very unpopular in Women Deliver when we started back in 2008, 2009 to say it pays to invest in girls and women. It pays to invest in their health, it pays to invest in their education, it pays to invest in their participation in the workforce. Because we said, oh, but that's not rights-based. And I'm kind of, we are rights-based, but we also need to be smart in the way we present our economics, because our arguments, when I stand in front of a minister of finance or a president, which I do today, which is also I have to pinch myself. I go out to the bathroom and then I scream and then I go out and I smile and say, well, So those arguments that it's a human right, they don't bite. They don't bite if you're a minister of finance and have to have a budget balance. They don't bite if you're a minister of health and everybody has a right to everything. So what it is that we need to make and also feel comfortable in making is both the rights argument the health and life saved argument and the economic argument. And luckily we're getting more and more evidence for that. So the evidence shows that women invest more in their families than men do. Invest more in their kids. Invest more in their kids' health and education. And more investors are seeing that if you really want to get bang for your buck, and it's not that men are not agents of change, they absolutely are. But it's a good investment, and more are seeing that. We're seeing it in the discussions about school fees. You know, just relating directly to your story, is when you abandon school fees, it gets many more girls through education. Because it is that priority, where do you put your money? So the school fee discussion. I was at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where kind of all the heads of states and CEOs and all of those come. So I was invited to sit in a little bit of a room like this, but just a bigger, not even a table. We were sitting in a round, and there was the president of that, and there was the minister of finance of that, and there was the CEO of and then the discussion was, what is it that we need to do to get gender equality? Again, I was sitting with some of the most powerful people in the world, and they were discussing this. It was wonderful. One of the arguments were taxes. Because when there is a tax system in a country, you can allocate that money. But if people don't pay taxes, there is no money to allocate. So one of the arguments in as countries move on and up and around is kind of having a fair tax system that actually gives the government money to allocate. Because countries can't be kind of what we heard yesterday in the finance plenary was that in some countries 70% of the health budget is paid by foreign aid. That's not a sustainable health system. It's not a sustainable school system. But if you don't have a tax system that can give other income and an enforcement of a tax system so you don't cheat. So that's kind of, it's just one of the discussions that's there. And it is linking the micro to the macro, but it needs to be done. And that also, sometimes as gender equality activists and advocates, it feels a little odd to argue for a tax system. I'll argue for quotas, and I'll argue for contraception, and I'll argue for rights, and I'll argue for all of that, but it just feels so meta, a little bit like, to argue for a tax system. But we're not going to see universal health coverage. We're not going to see education for a fair education system. We're not going to see that unless we have that. So it doesn't mean that I won't argue for the other things, but we need to remember some of those things.
I had tweeted my question, but I'll just ask it. My name is Shinan. I work in Kenya as an SRHR advocate and youth leader. And I was just thinking to myself, we have a lot of young leaders, both men and women, trying to do a lot in their societies. But by nature of biology, they are growing up. Their self-esteems are not as strong as they should be. They know at the back of their heads I should be strong, words can hurt me and things like that. But as upcoming leaders, especially young women, you receive a lot of backlash, sex shaming, cyberbullying, as you try to negotiate that ladder to speak for what you want or what you believe in. Along the way, these cyberbullying, sex shaming can make you even miss opportunities or close doors for you. So I just wanted to know how you negotiated this as a younger woman, or how you're doing it even now. Because we believe in the cause, we know what we need to do, but all these external forces, things we have done as individuals, by virtue that you're just a woman, a young man trying to change the gender norms and the stereotypes, it becomes very hard, especially when we have social media fueling it. We've seen women who had been suggested for positions get shamed. Pictures they took 1,000 years ago come up, and these women miss these positions, or these men miss these positions. So it just kills the fire for those of us who want to make a change. So just how did you negotiate it, or how are you negotiating it? Thank you.
So I want to say thank God that there was no social media when I grew up, because oh dear, there would be a lot of embarrassing pictures. So, you know, I love social media, I use social media, but I'm also very cautious of social media. And I think one of the things that we should all bring up, both kids and young people, in is a good behavior on social media. No, when you're dead drunk, don't take a photo of your friend. You know, if you're half naked, don't do it either, and don't post it. You know, and that's some of the guys. You know, kind of it's a little bit of the wild west right now. But our own ethical standards and guidelines on that, and that's also as parents and as peers, you know, just have some of those discussions. This is a story I don't think I've ever told anybody before. But I grew up in a very, very small village. And yes, it was before social media, but it doesn't mean you couldn't get bullied. I was the parent of 2 teachers in the school. They were semi-popular teachers, but that meant it always, if people didn't like my parents as teachers, who got beaten up. You know? So I learned to fight physically also at a pretty young age. Not anything I do anymore, but so my parents were liberals, and they were the only liberals in the village, and that meant, you know, I grew up in a liberal family, in a very religious and right-wing village. So every time I opened my mouth, people would kind of look at me and say, "What the hell?" So it was not a place that I could stay. Let's just put it like that. When I grew up and I started having opinions, and I have a lot of them, it was not a place, because it was really not a good place to be. It was a good place to grow up as a kid, because it's very, very safe. But there was also a lot of bullying, a lot of pushing. So at the same time, come from a very loving family and had really good friends in the village as well, and so it made me stronger in a way. And I don't want to say that we have to go through hardship to become strong, but we also got to see it. Sometimes take the step back and see, where does it come from? Why is it? Had an exchange with a Women Deliver Young leader yesterday. She was receiving a lot of trolling on social media. I sometimes get tagged on you know, I get my own, but it's not too bad. We can live with it. But this young woman got a lot of trolling. So I wrote her and said, you know, she tagged me in the tweet, so I saw it. And I was really appalled. It was kind of, what the hell are you saying to this 22-year-old young woman? You're a grown-up man and you're saying this publicly? So I wrote her and said, you know, I'm really sorry about that. And she wrote me back and said, hey, I get it all the time. It's my fuel. She turned it around to say, you know, if people are that opinionated about me, it must be because I'm doing something right. And I don't say it's the answer, because it is really unpleasant. But sometimes if we can twist it to say, if people have that opinion about me, it must be because I'm strong. If people really care so much about me that they or kind of think that I'm so strong that they have to do this to get me down, there is an inner strength and you're doing something right. Advice, you know, help each other on social media. What we then saw, again on this example, was certainly people mobilized around her, because people like me were kind of, hell no, we're not taking that. And so people were, and that's also where we need to, you know, not only complain when we see something wrong, but also really lift up when we see something good. And compliment each other. And that's men and women, you know. You know, if people have a great smile or are doing something super good, or have written a good article or done a great deed, say it. Say it loudly. Say it publicly. That's how we get strong together.
Okay, so I think a lot has been said. Maybe I can hand over Marie-Claire for a little summarize of what has been said, and then come up with other questions. Is that fine?
So, is there any other burning question in the room? Oh, okay. That makes it easier.
Hello, so it's kind of personal. As a woman in a big leadership position, you are expected to look good, be a good person, be a good leader, and be smart. And there are many high expectations that men do not face. For example, you said Helen Clark was not confident because she thought she had ugly teeth, but men can look hideous, and they would just have all the confidence in the world to stand up to leadership positions. But there's so much more expected of women. I just wanted to know if you face that and if there are any other barriers that you face that are not really clear.
I'm not sure that the expectations are different, but you can say, for example, on the dressing man, is it easier to be a man? You can kind of put on a suit and then you just have to change the shirt once in a while. No, that's kidding, because of course there's also expectations, and when you get into power, there's a lot of expectations on both sides. Masha, you follow me every day. I wear dresses. I think I'm pretty cool. I know I'm not conventionally beautiful, but I'm funny, and I'm smart, and I'm good at what I do, and do the rest. Sorry.
Thank you. My name is Mahlet. I'm from Ethiopia. My question for you is, all of us are here representing the youth, but it kind of bothers me that we might not actually represent the youth. I mean, everyone did something good to be here, but how about the women who can read and write, the women who are in the far rural areas? So as women, as our sisters, how can we bring also their voices to this kind of conferences and to the decision-making table?
That is a really good question, and it's not just as women, it's as all of us. And if I may get back to Pippi Longstocking, if you're strong, you have to be good, and you have to be inclusive. And how, I loved, and unfortunately I couldn't be here for the youth conference. I would have gate crashed the hell out of it. But so I followed it on Twitter, and that caravan, wow. Isn't it just wonderful to kind of to do that and collect all the stories and bring them here? One of my best times is when I get to sit, in a house or under a tree and talk to people in communities across the globe. Whether it's in Denmark, where I come from, in the U.S., and Senegal, wherever I get the chance to go, and just ask about their lives. We did, in Women Deliver, a half a year listening tour after the last Women Deliver conference to take the temperature on where is the world for women right now, for girls and women. And of course, it's nice to go to conferences like this, but these are the privileged ones who's already here. So that's not where the conversation can only be had. So I was so lucky that I got to talk to both women and men across the globe, in the communities, in the villages, and there. So just listening and asking questions, and my only job was to ask the questions and then kind of take it in. And that has imprinted in me forever. And I think we really need to do that. And if there's something we need to be aware of, always, is our privilege. I'm white, I'm well educated, I'm already at a certain rank in my career, I have the age, and that is, something that gives me a lot of benefits all the way around. And I know it, so that also means my job is to, again, lift other people up and with, and do that. That's all of us, who needs to have those reality checks, both with ourselves and our lives, but also with other people's lives. I did a lecture at Harvard recently, and I was sitting with a lot of the students, and one of the professors asked me about my career, how it had progressed, and I can tell you afterwards he regretted that question because I told him, I've not gone kind of a traditional route. So I've been a cleaning lady, I've been a waitress, I've been working in a library putting, kind of books back. I've been working in a factory where I buttoned overalls for babies 14 hours a day. I have had all kinds of weird jobs to get me through college, to get my life experience, to get money to travel. I know that's also a privilege that I could do that. It was not just to pay rent and get food. But that has also made me who I am. And I have one thing that I say, and I say it loud, is anyone who gets into a position of power over other people, whether politicians or big CEOs, they need to have had a job, a low-wage job that was hard physical. Because if they haven't been in those circumstances, if you haven't kind of done that, I don't know what it is to be a cleaning lady or someone who does that all the time. I just had a little whiff of it. But everybody who gets in that position of power needs to be able to have those checks. Because else we're ruling over other people's lives that we have no idea who are.
A round of applause, please. So I know the room is now really nice and warm and toasty, and I know you want to continue the conversations, but that's why it's called the hot seat, because when you're just getting comfortable, the conversation has to end. But we're a digital era, so we shall continue this conversation on Twitter at Ahike Youth. If you want simple instructions, if you forget everything, just remember to tag at Ahike Youth. Yes. Then there is hashtag Ahike Youth 2019, and we shall find a way of adding all those questions if they've not been answered, plus the key answers to the thread we started at the start of this Twitter chat within the next 24 hours, because it takes time to analyze questions, because some have been repeated, but maybe the point just passed you like the wind. So we'll make sure the air conditioning gets to you, and now you cool down a bit. Cindy? Yes. So with that, I'm so sorry, but I wish we could stay here till the cows come home, but we have someone else who has to come into this hot seat. So let's give a round of applause to Katja Iversen. Yes. And I think she ended with a bang.
So I'm gonna finish with a message, an ad, and a tweet. So the message is, you all got power. Please use it for good. Whether it means lift other people up, make changes in your daily life and in politics, but use it for good. And the ad is, I actually have two. One, Women Deliver will start an uptake of the new group of young leaders in the fall. There's some of you here, but I hope you'll look at it and maybe apply. It's a really good course where we have a digital university, and it's advocacy training on both SRHR, gender equality, but also on all the tools in the toolbox. There's a speakers bureau where we help connect the big stages for young leaders and lift up the voices, and then it's a seat grant system where we can give small seat grants to great advocacy projects. And then the other ad is, if you can come to the Women Deliver conference, please try. Some call it a life-changing experience. It's definitely fun and non-traditional. If you can't, then I hope that you will help us make the discussion about gender equality and women's health and rights a global dialogue by organizing satellite sessions that can tune in and out, or kind of also just help amplify the discussions. They'll come out, we'll come out with a toolkit tomorrow on doing satellite sessions, so we can really have this global dialogue, so nobody can roll back those discussions afterwards. But so it's a really a fueling station. You can see it on my Twitter tomorrow. And then the tweet is, when you invest in girls and women and young people, there's a ripple effect and everybody wins. Hashtag
A Hike Youth 2019.
Hashtag Africa Health 2019.
So guys, a brief commercial break for us to get some air conditioning. Then we are coming back in the next 5 minutes. 5 minutes sharp for the next round of town hall with Ben Naughty.